You know, I don't know why I thought things were going to somehow get more normal. After I recruited Roseanne, maybe I believed with her insight we could gain some clarity on the ongoing crisis plaguing the strange-ass town, in the strange-ass woods, that just so happened to contain a strange-ass estate that I, for some reason, let my ass get contracted to. And yet, I somehow let slip from my mind that I basically recruited a witch. I recruited a witch. Though, this didn't pierce my mind at all. After I signed off last, I sat in the driver's seat of my warmed, heated $70,000 armored-up SUV. I ran over the pressing matters in my head. Get Roseanne's tasks done, link up with John, exorcise the house, exorcise the whole fucking forest, then, hopefully, celebrate by getting drunk. That was, if we didn't meet our untimely demise, whether by falling down some hole, getting ripped up, or by ending up like Margaret Thompson. She was a town native who went on a morning walk through the woods. They recovered her body 2 weeks later. She was found 40 miles from her house, her body still warm in an otherwise freezing forest. Most of her vital organs were missing, although no surgical marks were found. And a shoe was found in her left lung. You know, shit like that. I read every single missing person sheet on that board. Margaret was just one of many, who don't get brutally murdered, just disappear. While I was caught up in the unexplained occurrences, I wondered if it would happen to me. Sure, I had recruited Roseanne, and Isaac at my back, although I did watch him take a leak on a lawn flamingo, and proceed to strike up a conversation with the garden gnome. Even with people at my back, am I just going to be another statistic? Will the Casimoth estate just disappear one day, leaving nothing but gravel and dust behind? No, not on my watch. Isaac zipped himself back up, waved goodbye to the garden gnome, and climbed into the passenger seat. He laughed as he shut the door. Heh, funny guy. Hey, so where are we heading first? He asked, popping open the glove compartment, and another fucking bottle of booze popped out. Seriously? I shrugged. She said we need to make 2 urgent stops and then we're good. Hopefully, it'll just go by fast. Yeah, you think she can stop whatever's happening back at the house? Isaac's question bounced around in my head for a minute. I even had to stop and ask myself that. I don't expect her to stop whatever it is. Our superior American firepower will take care of that. It was at this point that Rose exited her house, walking toward the car with a large bag slung around her shoulder. I expect her to figure out what the fuck is going on. Roseanne opened up the door and tossed her bag to the opposite side. Then she slid right in the back seat, sat in between the middle of us, eyeing both Isaac and I. Well now, what a change. Finally got some minions to do my bidding, she said, sarcasm oozing. She buckled up her seatbelt. I put the car in reverse and slid out onto the street. I opened up my touchpad GPS and gave it to her to plug in the address. It was the North Roadway out of town, as she put it. It's a plantation-looking place, strange for Missouri, but it's been here for a fat minute. It's got a large stone bridge, and if I'm correct, it'll be important. Roseanne trailed off. She started reading her notebook that she pulled out of her bag. Later on, Isaac told me that whatever she had written in there looked like straight out of the Rosetta Stone. Hieroglyphs, ruins, and something that looked like a messed up fairy. But whatever she was reading, she understood it enough to just zone out. On the way there, we got caught up at another intersection, right behind the salt mill. Even with the windows shut, you could still hear the sound of machinery, pouring salt into piles, smokestacks spewing smoke. On all sides, parking lots with construction equipment and vehicles, all devoid of life, surrounded us. Hey, Roseanne, I asked. She pried her eyes from what she was looking at to look at me. What's up? I looked around, sidewalks, roads, paved lots, so much equipment, infrastructure, and yet, just nobody. Why is this place always a goddamn ghost town? Roseanne slid over from the middle to Isaac's side, the right side. She gazed around the vehicle. That's odd. Well, not really odd. I mean, the first time I came here, no one and their mother wanted to talk to me. But once I got settled in, after a few months, I started seeing a few. So what? They're shy? Isaac asked. Well, it's noon, and I don't know why they're not out. I gotta say, Dwight, I don't know, she said, sliding back to her book and continuing to read. Great. Our resident occultist doesn't even know what's going on in this place. Our drive was relatively uneventful. Isaac and Roseanne got to small talking, mostly about where they traveled to. Roseanne has apparently gone all across the Americas, Venezuela, Brazil, Chile, Panama, Guatemala, Mexico, and so far been around the southern half of the US. Isaac, as you all know, casually went camping in the woods for a few months and somehow found himself in Missouri, 2 states away, as she put it. You somehow traveled 700 miles and didn't stop to think, maybe you should go back? She said astoundedly as she took notes. Nope, Isaac said proudly, taking a swig from his bottle. Oh, and it's 725 miles. Thank you. This just fueled her curiosity even more. Did you see any paranormal sights on your journey? The Louisiana swamps, the Missouri goat den? Isaac shrugged and scratched his hairy chin. He pondered, raised the eyebrow above his eye patch. Not really. I did hear a lot of shit outside of my tent, though. I mean, goddamn, I'm pretty sure there were like 10 whole silhouettes standing around back in North Texas. There was this really weird place, a gas station. I couldn't tell you what state. That Jack was a weird fella. This went on for what I thought was goddamn hours, and the drive was only 20 minutes long. The road led to a small patch of trees, up to a large T intersection. That ahead was a stone bridge, probably near a 100-meter stretch of river across. To the left was a road that followed the river, and to the right... Alright, how do I explain this? The river curves, forming a large swath of land to the right of the bridge. On that piece of land lies cultivated masses of cherry trees, hedges, groomed grass, and a stone and metal fence, all leading up to an iron gate. We pulled up to the gate. Roseanne waved to the camera mounted on the side, and it slowly opened. The driveway led to a small circle drive-in, and a large white-painted house, a plantation house. Just as she explained, stone columns, old but well-maintained, furnishings on every inch from the ground to the tiled roof. As I pulled up to the front of the house, Isaac let out a long whistle. Someone is rolling in the green out here. Look at those columns. He was right. Whoever lived here, they were wealthy. And as I've learned from Kazimoth, sometimes the wealthy need help dealing with demons underneath their roofs. Well, let's go, lads, Roseanne quipped as she stepped out of the car. Isaac and I looked at each other and we followed her. He shoved a bottle of Jameson into his cargo pants and straightened up his cap. The beeping noise of me locking the car was the only audible noise around us. Silence and a cold autumn wind blanketed the property. Roseanne knocked on the door, standing tall and professional as she waited. I leaned into one of the columns, arms crossed, trying to look like a background character while she worked. Although not observant, whatever went on, I wanted to keep an eye on it. Might come in handy later. Isaac sat on the edge of a flower pot near the opposite column, then fell in, tipped the pot over and caused it to spill onto the steps below. I was caught somewhere between laughing and sighing, and Roseanne said something to the effect of, why did you, before she heard the audible sound of footsteps heading our way. Isaac was quick on the mark as he swept the dirt behind the column, tossed the crackpot off the porch into a hedge, just as the door opened. The man was tall, and this is coming from me. Like I said before, I'm 6'2", maybe 6'3" on a good day. This guy towered over all of us. He wore slacks with a dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up, a vest on it, navy blue and black. Good taste. He pushed his circle-frame glasses to the bridge of his nose. A receding hairline caused a shimmer of light off of his head. He gazed around at me, then at Isaac, then squinted at the patch of dirt underneath Isaac's feet, which he stepped in front of, then to Roseanne. You must be Dr. Roseanne, the man said. His voice not too deep, however sounded sophisticated, with a little bit of a southern twang. Roseanne nodded, and he led the way inside, Roseanne following close behind him. Isaac and I followed her. Dr. Roseanne, Isaac said, cackling, although to her ire. What's your PhD in, possessed-ass trees? The man led us up to a very decorated living room. Dark oak wood furnished the entire inside. A fireplace near the back corner. Family's pictures, autumn's decorations. A reoccurring dark red on all of the fabric created a pretty nice contrast. Not hard to look at, just strange. On a large chair sat an older woman. She was maybe in her mid-50s. Is that bad? Should I not guess a woman's age? And wore mostly hand-knitted items, such as a scarf, sweater, pants, shoes. Would those have been slippers then? And a skinless cat sat on her lap. The cat also had a hand-knitted sweater on. Mrs. Mox, this is the professional you requested a few days ago, Dr. Roseanne, the man said. The woman nodded and he strolled off into another room. Roseanne took the lead. Isaac and I hung back in the other side of the room. Mrs. Marks, it's really a pleasure to... Roseanne was cut off when the woman stood up, waving her hand. Rose, please. She had a thick accent, from someone who lived in Missouri. Call me Candace. Roseanne nodded and continued. I'm here for the, problem you called me about? The woman nodded. A small smile that had been in the corner of her mouth faded. She stopped petting her cat. Then it stretched and jumped from her lap to Roseanne's. Yes, honey, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I called you because I got a problem that not even the town priest can handle. Did she actually call the local church? I still don't know. She said it with such confidence. Hell, even when I first talked to Theodore about the things up at the estate, there was a slight sense of denial. Candace spoke like I now speak, which means that she had some confidence in what she was dealing with. It started a few weeks ago when the trees started to turn orange and red. My little granddaughter Claire loves to play down by the riverside with their little boats and toys. Candace laughed. It faded when she said, that's when she started bringing home those things back to the house every evening. Things? Roseanne asked. The man from before brought in a dark wooden box, a small latch where a lock would go. Roseanne took it, setting it on her lap. The cat, disgruntled, leapt off and walked over to Isaac. Isaac was slightly horrified by the sweater-wearing flesh feline. Then she opened it. She pulled out a golden locket, although you wouldn't know it unless you were as close as I was. Rust and decay had definitely set in. The previous clam-shaped piece was now a dark brown. Inside were more items, all with deep personal connections. Bracelets with names, necklaces with inscriptions. The list went on and on. She said she was given them gifts for playing with the lady. I don't know what that meant, thought it was just some creep stalking her. So I sent Arnold out to keep a lookout. Candace gestured to her tall friend. He cleared his throat. Roseanne was still looking through the box. 4 hours, nothing happened. Claire continued to play, and then a hand reached out of the water, giving her that knife. Roseanne held up a knife. It wasn't as rusted as the other ones. Now that I look back, it wasn't rusted at all. A silver finish to the entire outside made it look like a cake knife. Until you saw the blade, sharpened, intentionally so, to the point where the silver was scraped off. On the left side of the blade, in cursive, read, "To my dear darling Candace." Roseanne looked shocked. Candace wiped tears away from her eyes as Arnold continued. We forbid her from going to the riverside. Things calmed down for about a week. Then yesterday I went to her room to get her ready for school. She was gone. Her window was open and her entire room was soaked in water. Roseanne dropped the knife back into the box. She pushed it back into Arnold's arms. She stood up. Please tell me you've called the cops, Roseanne asked. They filed a missing person case and are searching the riverfront. Nothing so far. Roseanne nodded. And at this point, Isaac and I stepped out into the hall, giving her a chance to talk with them alone. Isaac now held the cat in his arms. The feline rubbed its hairless head against Isaac's beard happily. I ran my hand down my face, sitting up against a tableside wall. What in the fuck? Isaac let the cat climb onto his shoulders. He reached into his pants and pulled out a Jameson bottle, the one from before, and uncapped it. It's gotta be a freshwater mermaid, he said, so confident, taking a swig. I lost my train of thought, shaking my head. What? He shrugged, the bottle in his hand, the cat now clinging to the other one. I don't know, it's just the first thing that came to mind. Though, how'd it get on land? I don't know. He took another swig, offering some to the cat. It began to lick from the lips of the bottle. Isaac, I really doubt it's a mermaid. He smiled, taking another sip, offered more to the cat. I don't know. That or maybe a shark with arms? What do you think, Maurice? Isaac offered another portion to the cat. I looked at the cat and saw the name Maurice imprinted on its tag. Seriously, a southern house, a New Orleans accent, and Maurice is the name they picked for this cat? Roseanne stepped into the hall, pulling me by my collar. Isaac followed, Maurice and alcohol still in his arms. We stepped outside. Roseanne made a beeline around the house through the hedges, not saying a word. I followed her, trying to step through the thick brush as she seemingly just cut right through it. Well? Roseanne didn't respond. Roseanne. She continued to remain silent, walking through the bright green grass, past the white patio furniture, a fire pit, and then the entire backyard toward the river. Roseanne, did you check the kid's room? Right when I asked that, she stopped dead, causing me to nearly crash into her. She stared at me with cold, dead eyes. Yes, she said simply, continuing her power walk toward the river. Well? Nothing, she said again, simply. What do you mean nothing? What about the water? I went in there with her overgrown butler, and nothing was amiss. Everything was dry. Nothing was tampered or broken. She vanished, and all traces in her room are gone. She finished off sounding kind of exhausted, and stopped 20 meters from the river, near a bridge. Well, what did you expect? Isaac said, walking up to us, still feeding alcohol to Maurice, who was still in his arms. Mermaid's not going to leave a calling card after kidnapping a kid. It's not a... I stopped, noticing something. Do you hear that? Roseanne asked. Nope, Isaac said, before taking his 47th swig of the hour. Exactly, she said, turning to us. This river is one of the main waterways in the area, and it's standing still. She was right. I looked over the water. Nothing. Not a wave, not a ripple, not a cut in the liquid. Nothing. Well, river's haunted, case closed. Can we go deal with the fucking ghouls in our basement now? Isaac asked, and Roseanne looked like she was about to give him hell and the be-all end-all of ass-chewings. Until I stopped her. Alright, this is your turf. What can we do? The simple question seemed to stop her. She paused, placing her bag on the ground, kneeling down for something inside. We're gonna have to go in the water. Ha! Isaac said, letting Maurice polish off the bottle. Okay, let's just go for a swim in the kidnapping river. Gosh, Dwight, you really like to recruit the best of humanity. If there's any sign of her, or remains, it's gonna be in the water. We can look all we want, but we won't get any answers unless someone grows a pair, besides me, and goes in. She was right. I reached down and tucked my jeans into my boots. If I was going in, I wasn't going to get my ass bitten off by some weird-ass eel. I approached the river, eyeing it, shore to shore. It stood just dead still. The kind of stillness a glass of water would have if it was left in a completely dead house. I took a step in, braving the water, creating a ripple. Something in my stomach told me that I might have just pissed something off. But my hand reaching into my jacket, pulling out my Glock, told me that I was all but done caring if a demon was pissed off at me or not. So, what am I looking for exactly? I said, trudging through the river. The water felt cold, like it was freezing my legs. I gazed around. I don't know if it was the dirtiness of the water or some pollution from the salt mill, but I could barely see through the 2-foot deep river. Wait a minute. If it's 2 feet deep, how the fuck could anything even fit in here, let alone avoid being spotted for weeks? Roseanne stopped, gazing at her book as she held her hand to her chin, contemplating. The bridge. I turned back to her, Isaac, and I think even Maurice did. Or maybe it was just mimicking Isaac. That place has a whole lot of bad mojo surrounding it. Ruins, tales of sacrifices during its construction. It has to be some kind of catalyst. And she told me this now, after I stepped into the possessed-ass river. So I began trudging to the bridge, slowly, agonizingly slow. Each step, I expected to step on a skull or a bone or something, and every other step, I expected to get pulled under and drowned. But it never happened. I reached the yard closest to our side of the river. My trucker and witch compatriot followed close from the edge. Every step I took was definitely a feeler. Roseanne pulled out her phone and turned on the flashlight as she walked underneath it, shining it around, inspecting every aged and deteriorated inch of the bridge's stone blocks. "You can feel it," she said, turning back to Isaac and I. "In the air, the aura of this place." She wasn't wrong. The second I trudged through the water under the bridge, the feeling in the air shifted. Something wasn't right. I've never been a religious person, although now I am a bit of a superstitious one, but this feeling struck a chord with me. From what I had seen downrange in my army days, the raw, bitter feeling, this was evil. This place felt evil. Roseanne flipped open her book and began inspecting some insignias carved into the rock. I shined my Glock's tack light, a small LED mounted on the bottom, into the water. It was murky. Whether due to the dirt I had kicked up or the pollution from the mill, I could barely see my own feet. Then I stepped on something. It didn't crack, slither, or attack. It felt like the corner of something poked into the bottom of my boot. I gave a heads up to Roseanne and Isaac. I slipped off my jacket and tossed it to him. Then I made a bold choice, the one of reaching down into the water to retrieve the item. The smartest choice? No. But we needed to get a move on and figure out what we could do for Candace and her missing granddaughter. I felt around, the icy cool water numbing my hand as I dug through the muddy dirt, searching for something. Anything. Then I felt it. The texture felt grainy? Is that a term? Straight lines ran across it, with sharp, although worn corners, forming a strange square. More of a box. I pulled it from the depths of the river, holding it up as water splashed all around me. I shined my Glock's light on it, a well-carved box with edgings at the top and bottom, with 4 little legs, and a rusted brass latch. At first glance, it kinda resembled a music box. "What is that?" Roseanne asked, shining her much brighter light on it. It was then that I could see through the damp brown wood that there were faint lines of paint. Although, when I say paint, I mean I was lucky to even see them when I was right up to it. Pink, sky blue, purple. I tossed the box ashore to Roseanne, who immediately opened it up. "It's a music box," she said, pulling out a small ballerina figure. Well, I guess I was right. "What's that sucker doing at the bottom of the river?" Isaac asked. By now, he had wrapped Maurice up in my coat and that small sweater. That cat was the most well-dressed person out here. I shined my light back on the river below and stuck my hand back in. Then I felt a smooth surface, like one of those brand new faucets just after it had been polished. Then another, like wet fabric, and then a spiky one. A rough one? "Roseanne?" I said, cautiously grabbing a handful of whatever the fuck was at the bottom of the river. She shined her light on my hand as I fished up. Jesus, even now. It was a collection of toys, items that would belong to children. I tossed them onto the grass outside the bridge's arc. The smooth surface of the old rusted car, one of the older passenger ones from like the 20s, a ballet slipper, an old beat-up baseball. "What in the fuck?" Isaac said. He and even Maurice were gazing down at the pile. Roseanne walked over, getting a close inspection of the items. I went back to digging. I felt more than just that down there, and despite my hopes, I was right. More toys. Dinosaurs, blocks, swords. All age ranges, for boys, girls. No discrimination here. I pulled maybe 20 of the damn things out before I stopped. Roseanne sat on the grass, arms around her legs, shaking her head. "It's targeting kids." Isaac remained silent throughout all of this. Then he glanced over at me. "Those clothes you found in the driveway this morning, didn't they all belong to kids?" Fuck this town. Then a moment of panic struck As the water calmed down, the waves slowly stopped their sloshing and splashing, returning to a quiet, dead still state that it had been in. Nothing had touched me. In fact, through the numbing cold of the water, it was a pain in the ass to not feel if I was on solid ground. Then, as clear as day, I felt something grab a hold of my left leg and drag me towards the center of the river. Hell fucking no. I was not going to become another statistic. I aimed my Glock down at the water just a couple of feet from where it was pulling me. I squeezed the trigger faster than automatic fire would have gone off. The 9mm rounds fired one after another into the murky depths, splashing water violently in my face as I backed up, fighting towards the shore. Through the ringing in my ears, I heard Roseanne and Isaac yelling, and whatever had grabbed me slowly let go. I planted a firm foot on the ground and charged out, now soaked head to toe in the cold river water. I dropped the pistol's magazine and put another one in. Turning, my ears ringing, I barely heard Roseanne as she ran up to me and grabbed my shoulder, shaking me. What? What did you... Her voice sounded distant, distorted. Between this and Isaac deafening me in the basement, I was going to need a hearing aid. What did you see? Roseanne screamed, finally breaking through my numbed ears. Something grabbed my damn leg. I tried to stick a finger in my ear to, I don't know, clear it out. Roseanne turned and looked back at the water. The river stood dead still. Isaac looked at us, holding Maurice. Nothing. I had fired off the full magazine. 17 goddamn rounds went into the river, all before charging out of it like a bat out of hell. And now it was just still. Well, Isaac said, pivoting toward the river and then back to us. I guess riverside skinny dipping is out of the question? I pulled back the slide, checking to see if a new round had been chambered into the hand cannon. They did. I walked up to Dr. Paranormal, MD, my muzzle pointing downwards as I scanned the cursed-ass stream. So, I guess it's definitely possessed now. Roseanne simply stared, unaffected by my prodding. It's kidnapped so many. And what was that you pulled from the bridge? She said. Her voice was distant. I scanned the water, waiting and partially hoping for something to jump out just so I can get some payback for whatever grabbed me. Well, this is your turf now. What do we do? My question must have triggered something because she sprung back to life, ran over to that book of hers, opening the worn outer cardboard cover and flipped to a page near the middle back. I don't know the full nature, and it's too dangerous to keep going back in. But I have a theory. Roseanne pulled out some black chalk in a brown bag from her bigger handbag, and walked over to the underside of the bridge. Isaac and I followed, keeping watch. By the time we got down there, Roseanne was already drawing something on the wall, and I'll tell you, I couldn't even begin to describe it. It had a larger outer circle, and with what looked like interlinking lines and shapes, a triangle, a morphed hexagon, some kind of demonic-ass cursive writing. It looked like something you'd see on the padded wall of some schizo cell. Then she opened the bag. She grabbed a handful of salt and smeared one handful on the cracks of the bridge. She poured some on the walkway beneath her, before taking a chunk and tossing it into the water. This caused the water to literally bubble. Only slightly, though, and I think it might have hissed. It's a bit of a hypothesis, but I think it might work, she said as she walked back to her bag, picking up her supplies. So, Isaac looked back to the symbol as he spoke. What's with your possessed stencil work? It's an exorcism ruin, Gaelic. Well, at least my sources think it's Gaelic. It was found in an old tomb in an island of the Northeast Sea. It could be Scandinavian. Shit, from how it looked, it could have been Martian. Is that it? I asked. Roseanne slung her bag over her shoulder. She dipped her head looking toward us. Sometimes there's not a lot you can do. We can only hope it does something. If not for Claire, then for whoever might have been in its sights next. Head back to the car. I'll speak to Candace. And with that, she walked up the grass slope toward the house. Isaac and I made a quiet journey back to the SUV. With a simple click of the key, the vehicle unlocked. I slid it and blasted the heater, hoping to dry off some of my wet-ass clothing. Isaac slid in too. Maurice still wrapped up in my... Isaac, that's not yours. Isaac? I said, drawing out his name. He turned, confused as to what was the matter. You've got to give the lady her skinless demon back. Then Isaac literally scoffed, pulling Maurice close. First, he's not a skinless demon, he's a Siamese angel. And second, come on, Dwight, he said, trying to pull some puppy dog eye on me. Maurice rubbed his skinless head on Isaac's beard. Now, Isaac, stealing things from creepy southern people in the woods has never gone well. Like, ever. God knows if she has 17 more wandering truckers just like you in the basement. But, Isaac, just take Maurice back in the damn house. And with a groan long, fine. Isaac hopped out of the car and slowly shuffled back up to the manor. I reclined in my seat, letting the heaters blow dry my damp long sleeves. I tried to play some music while typing this shit up, but I noticed after 5 minutes, nothing appeared on the radio. Nothing on any of the channels. Just nothing. There wasn't even static, it was just the sound of a cool breeze coming through the radio. The thing operated off of satellites, so it couldn't have been a broken antenna. This place was just cut off from the normal world. I paused my haunted blogging session because I noticed Isaac and Roseanne heading back to the car. Slipping my phone away, they slipped into their seats. I'm sure you'll see him again, Isaac. Maurice sure seemed to like you, Roseanne said, patting our resident Cyclops on the shoulder. Yeah, still sucks though, Isaac said, defeated as he tossed me my leather jacket. I slipped it on, hoping it would help me warm up. Then I realized my gun-blazing response to the river earlier must have scared Maurice, because now my jacket smelled like cat piss. God fucking damn it. I pulled out of the circle of the driveway of the house. The gate slowly opened as we approached. We got back on the deserted roads of this godforsaken town. Roseanne reached over and plugged in another location, a small house near the eastern end of town, just off the main road. Well, that was entertaining, Roseanne said, surprisingly chipper from today's events. I raised an eyebrow and looked over the seat. You're taking things pretty well, she laughed. Well, yeah, you do this for a few years and you tend to learn to laugh at things. Got it, soldier boy? She shook her head, sitting back. A few years. Wait, soldier boy. Roseanne pointed to Isaac, whose hands were scratching his beard. I might have let a few things slip while we were walking back to the car. Sorry, Dwight. Roseanne leaned forward, eyeing me up and down as we drove. Like what? I asked. Isaac chuckled. Oh, you know, ghost in the basement. Again, I still don't know if it's a ghost. That night in the storm, your army days. You guys have seen Tim? She said enthusiastically. I took my eyes off the road, pulling up to a stop sign. You have seen Tim? I asked, and in hindsight, I'm not really surprised. Roseanne rested her chin on my chair as I pulled away. So tell me, are there really giants in Kandahar? I sighed. No. Roseanne continued to press. Is it true you guys hunted Bigfoot back in the 80s? I shook my head in disbelief. I'm like 34. How old do you think I am? Roseanne shrugged. Just saying. For a door kicker, you have adapted pretty well to combating cryptids in your backyard. I guess I have. Alright, miss, here's a counter question. What's going on with these woods? Roseanne sat back and shrugged. Where do I start? Disappearances ranging from all the way back into the 70s. People turning up dead in ways that were unimaginable. Stories of shapeshifters and attacks on campsites. Have you even seen the stairs? I raised an eyebrow. Yep, Isaac said, nodding his head. I looked at him, then at her. Stairs? Roseanne just shivered. Don't go near them. Back to what I was saying, these woods are bloody fucked. And the types of things we seem to be encountering, well, don't call me Captain Obvious, but it seems organized. Your boss must have really pissed something off. If only Theodore would answer his goddamn phone call, or any questions in his voicemail. The GPS dinged as we reached our next stop. The street was well maintained. Modern houses made of red brick and concrete lining the streets. Pulling up to the front of the house, I could see a TV and all the lights on inside. So, what's the deal with this place? I asked, checking my weapon before stepping out. Guess we'll see, she said cryptically. Then the car screen buzzed, and a very, very long-awaited name popped up on the screen. Incoming call, Theodore Kazimoth. Well, holy shit. Isaac slapped the dashboard. About fucking time. I gazed back at Roseanne. You and Isaac take this one. I've got some things I need to hash out with the boss. Roseanne and Isaac cleared out of the car and began walking up to the house. I pressed accept on the screen.
Hello?
The pompous voice of my boss, Theodore J. Kazimoth, entrepreneur, shareholder in several companies, and officially the worst real estate investor on this side of the free world, came through the speaker.
Dwight? Are you there?
Theodore, about fucking time you called. He was a millionaire, my boss, but the past few months, I couldn't contain the anger boiling in me at this point.
Oh, Dwight. Watch your mouth, young man. Extremely uncalled for, I assure you.
Uncalled for? Are you serious? This man is either delusional, in denial, or the most straightforward liar I had ever encountered. And I traded words with lieutenants. A lot. And in retrospect, he probably was all the above.
Now, Dwight, I did make the unorthodox request to lend-lease you several $1,000s out of my pocket. I would appreciate it if you showed some gratitude, considering you, yourself, could not make do with the equipment I had given you.
Arrogance just soaked in his voice. You slap an estate down in a forest that is more haunted than the Somme battlefield, and you expect me to drive out the demons with a 308 bolt action and a positive fucking attitude?
Well, I mean, coming from some gung-ho former sergeant, now monster hunter, dragging my son into town on your private escapades.
I raised an eyebrow. How did you... Theodore laughed through the phone.
You can't expect to post everything on the internet and not see my company's private forums blow up with requests about your little blog series now, can you?
Well, shit. Expected.
On top of the bad reputation and the constant pandering I need to make to my investors, you, my friend, are becoming a thorn in my side. I don't like thorns, Dwight.
You really expect me to stay with what we had? Wait for the enemy to break on through the gates and kill us all? Including your fucking son that you left here? Theodore's line grew quiet. I'm not gonna act like you don't know what's going on, Theo, because I know you do. So don't try to take the high ground when you neglected your only child. And then Theodore laughed. Like, really laughed. The kind of laugh that had a weight to it that sent a chill down my spine. That kind of laugh.
Dwight, you really should have just kept your mouth shut and done your job. Sure, sometimes it gets scary. Sometimes it might get froggy, as you dumb grunts say. But that's just the way men like you are paid. Instead, you had to try to be a hero, and you had to try to do what you think is right. And meddle in business that is certainly not yours.
It became my business the moment you dragged me out to this place.
Well, I guess you won't have to worry about that for long. Dwight, I'm coming back in the next couple of weeks with some company backup. And unless you want to be one of those people who goes missing and up on that corkboard down at the pub, get your ass back to the manor, lock and load your tricked out AR-15, and stay put.
If we had been face to face, Theodore and I would be burning holes in each other's heads. The tense silence was only permeated by the sound of him clearing his throat. Whatever devilish tone he had, dropped, left only the native-sounding Theodore I remember. He returned.
I would hate to have to send a search party out in the middle of winter. God, the ones around here never get the job done. Bad joke, I'm sorry. Stay safe, Dwight.
Then the call interface vanished. I sat back in the driver's seat thinking, company backup? What? Did he think some armed goons were going to be enough to stomp out what's ever happening here? He might kill me and dump me in a ditch somewhere out in the Pine Groves, but whoever else he hires is going to be too dumb, too ignorant, too unprepared to avoid the shots that they're throwing at the estate. I opened up my phone once again, updating you all. I don't know what Isaac and Roseanne are doing, but they seem to be having fun. Isaac was yelling something, but it's too muffled by the car's heater to hear it. Did a firework just go off? Well, Roseanne just texted me. They're almost done. Isaac is apparently trying to draw out conversation with Daisy, the owner who apparently is also a raging alcoholic. Great. Like we don't have bigger priorities. Hold on. John's calling. Alright, change of plans, people. I've got to go. Now. I just screamed at Roseanne and Isaac to get in the fucking car. Now. John called. From all the loud noises in the background, he pleaded. No, he screamed at me to get to his friend's house right now. Something is attacking them, and they don't know what it is. I've got to go. No time to wrap things up, but I'll be back. I would like to thank all of the lovely, lovely patrons currently listed on screen right now. Dan R. Chaos X, J.Y. Pyromancer, Hayden M.H. Ethan A., Daniel H., Maximilian Charles P., Go Cute Puppy LLC, Young Sykes, and Dark Side of the Bear. Guys, thank you all so much.